6:31, so I'm going to call this meeting to order of the Champaign County Board. Clerk, could you please call the roll?
Goss. Hanauer Friedman. Harper.
Here.
Ingram.
Here.
Here.
Lokshin.
Here.
Michaels. Rodriguez.
Here.
Rogers.
Present.
Sexton. Here. Storr. Straub.
Here.
Taylor.
Here.
Thorsland.
Here.
Fenich Thierenot.
Here.
Williams.
Here.
Wilson.
Here.
Carter. Cowart.
Present.
Esri.
Here.
Furtado.
Here.
Patterson.
Here. Sorry, give me just a second. All right, next on the agenda is the prayer, and this is a prayer from Rabbi Norman Klein. Without cohesion amongst us, our effectiveness would be diminished. Since we need everyone, we should be sensitive to the needs of others. Human need is infinite, and when we respond to it, we become painfully conscious of our inadequacies. Our various religious beliefs all direct us towards creating a better world. Our job is thus not to complete the task, but to work towards that end. We can do this by investing in our community, maybe do in good faith. Amen. Rise for the pledge. All right, Clerk, could you please read the notice of the meeting?
Notice is hereby given that a regular meeting of the County Board, Champaign County, Illinois, will convene on February 23rd, 2023, 6:30 p.m. in the Shields Carter Meeting Room, Brookins Administrative Center, 1776 East Washington Street, Urbana, Illinois, in said county for the purpose of allowing and ordering payments of claims against the county, receiving and acting upon reports of committees, and such other matters as may be brought before said meeting, which said meeting shall continue in session from day to day until the completion of said business.
Could I have a motion to approve the agenda? I have Straub and Cowart.
Yeah, I have one change. I'd like to pull item A5 from consent. There's been a change in some of the language in that agreement with State Farm Center for the household hazardous waste.
All right, that will be moved to 11B. All right, nothing? Okay. All right, all those in favor of the amended agenda, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? All right, next is the date and times of the next regular meetings of the county board and the standing committees. We have public participation. I do not have any slips for public participation. Are there any members of the public that would like to address the board? All right, next is the consent agenda. Clerk, could you please call a roll? a motion?
So moved.
Julie?
Ingram.
Yeah. Ingram, Taylor. All right, clerk, should please call the roll.
Harper,
Yes.
Ingram,
Yes.
Locke,
Yes.
Lockshin,
Yes.
Rodriguez,
Yes.
Rogers,
Yes.
Sexton, Storr,
Yes.
Straub,
Yes.
Taylor,
Yes.
Thorsland,
Yes.
Vanish Not,
Yes.
Williams,
Yes.
Wilson,
Yes.
Cowart,
Yes.
Esri,
Yes.
Furtado,
Yes.
Patterson.
Yes. All right, next, communications. Do any board members have communications for the board? Mr. Wilson?
Thank you, Chairman. My name is Jeff Wilson, and it was my pleasure to attend the Veterans Assistance Committee meeting this week on Tuesday. And, well, first of all, it's an eye-opener for me and also an education. And I just admire the work that the Veterans Assistance Program is doing and what they accomplished. And maybe not everyone knows, but at least now I know that the Veteran Assistance Program has two parts, right? It's to provide financial assistance to those veterans that are in need. And the budget's about $80,000 a year. And about half of it goes to pay temporary for rent, and about the other half goes for utilities, and then some other money for food, etc. But I was really impressed by the organization and what Brad Gould is accomplishing through that organization. They meet about once a quarter, and so about 3 months from now they'll meet again. But I thought, just as a reminder, just to say what is accomplished. So number one, there's about, they receive about 1,200 calls per year, and they gave $87,000 last year to various veterans. There are 427 veterans received assistance, but I think maybe the telling number is there's about 120 people that did not receive assistance because, well, guess what? Obviously, they ran out of money. And I think we all know that there's a new state law, right? There's a new state law that's going to allocate, hopefully, more money to the veterans, and it's up to us as a county board to help negotiate that and navigate that for assistance for the veterans. So I definitely would like to put a plug in for us to pursue that and to continue helping those that gave their lives or served their lives for our country. And then just one other plug, if there's a veteran here in this room or there's a veteran listening, if you have a DD 214, you should file that with your county clerk, because that does provide some additional benefits for you when you file your, and a DD 214, for people that don't know, is a statement of your honorable discharge from the military. But if you have a DD 214, then go ahead and file that with the county. And that's the end of my update. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
All right, thanks. Anyone else?
Just to echo a little bit off of Mr. Wilson's, I will say when I was recorder, we got, I put a concerted effort into the idea of getting more of those DD 214s recorded, and people were bringing them in mostly from recent discharges, but you can bring it in and record it from, of course, any time. And a friend of mine brought in his from his 1968 discharge, and his was in better shape than most of the people that I know that got discharged within the last 20 years. He kept it very nice. But yes, please do come do that. There are benefits that we had arranged that you can get discounts around town and things like that with a card that you get from doing that. But beyond that, loath as he is to often have the spotlight shown on him, Mr. Williams, I believe this will be his last meeting with us, as he has tendered his resignation, and I just wanted to shout out his service, not just on this board, but to the people of Champaign County for many years, not just as a county board member, but also as a precinct committee person and as the Cunningham Township assessor. I don't think anybody would ever say that Wayne does not do his research. He comes with extra research and extra statistics. He and Ms. Furtado are the two that I often am wowed by the amount of numbers that are within their heads. So I just wanted it to not go unnoticed and not go unmentioned that I will miss him, and I assume that maybe some other folks on this board will. And I want to thank him for stepping up. He was the only applicant when the seat came open. And so I think that meant a lot that he was willing to do that, because he certainly did not have to. He had enough on his plate. And I want to thank him for his service on the county board, and also just in general to the citizens of Champaign County.
Similar to Jeff, I had my first meeting as the liaison this week with the Developmental Disability Board. And one of the big concerns that they brought up to kind of us as a body, the county in general, is accessibility of our board meetings, the recordings specifically, and the live stream. They have a lot of, I'm not going to say just they, because it's anybody who has hearing issues. And they're noticing that a lot of us are either not speaking into our microphones or turning away from our microphones, because you can't really hear when people do turn away from their microphones. The recording doesn't pick it up. It doesn't play on YouTube. If you try to auto-generate closed captioning, it's not going to get any of your words. So I know that Lynn Canfield will be meeting with the county executive, I think next week, to see what the county can do to help our constituents be able to access these meetings remotely in a more accessible way. So just a reminder, talk into your microphone. Thank you.
Thanks, Leah. Anybody else? Mr. Wilson?
I apologize. Hey, thanks for that. So I'm going to speak into my microphone. I just wanted to acknowledge there are some members here from the VAC, and just want to thank them for being here and acknowledge them for their service as veterans.
All right, is there anyone else? All right, moving on. Can I have a motion for the approval of minutes from the January 19th, 2023 regular meeting? Beth? Leah? All right, is there any discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? All right, next we have the standing committee's summary of action for facilities and for ELUC as well from the February 9th meeting, and then also the agenda item that was pulled off of the consent agenda because there are some alterations needed. Mr. Thorsland, did you want to, I guess we need to make a motion for that first, and then do you want to amend that?
Yeah, first I'd entertain a motion to approve the item A5, which is the agreement for the household hazardous waste State Farm Center parking lot permit. Aaron,
I'll second it. I believe you technically are making it.
Technically I moved it, Aaron, and I want to thank Aaron just briefly for running the meeting last 2 weeks ago when I was not able to be here. So thank you very much, Aaron, for that. There's one change. If you go to page 21, you will see that they added the university may terminate this agreement without cause and upon 30 days written notice to licensee. Again, this is us renting the parking lot for the household hazardous waste. They wanted to add that because they did. John Hall's not here. Normally would be, but there's been a little illness through the zoning office. So I think most of the staff is at home listening to us from there. But Megan was able to get this to us. So that's the change. That would be added under 7. Other than that, everything is the same. So we want to, Aaron?
I assume it was Megan highlighted this on mine, maybe not on yours. There is the change very ultimately minor, I would say, under 2.
Right, at the 5
Yeah,
p.m.
changes from 11 to 5 p.m. It actually is in our favor. You could say it gives more time for cleaning up.
Yeah.
I don't know that we need that much time, but that is another small change just to truly note it.
Yeah, and that's up on number 2.
Yeah.
So I don't have a lot to say if anyone has questions about this, because this all happened sort of yesterday with John. The reason why we didn't pull it from this agenda and wait till March was because the Illinois Department of Environmental Protection wants us to get this to them as soon as possible. So they want it today, but it's clearly not going to get to them today, but it'll get to them tomorrow. So that's all I have.
All right, seeing, Mr. Wilson?
Thank you, Chairman. I think that's a great provision. The only question I would have with that, if the university can cancel that without cause, provided 30 days notice, is there also provision to reset the date to another date?
I don't know the answer to that. There was some discussion about this before. I think the attempt would be made to put it in an alternate location rather than change the date. But that's just based on some loose discussion we had at an ELOC a couple of months ago, I think. We hope that they don't cancel it. I'm not sure that there's some sports ball event that the university would, of course, want to take precedence over the HHW, which is very popular. So this was just something that their side wanted to add. So and probably we'll investigate. We used to do this at Parkland. Maybe we'll do it at Marketplace, somewhere that's not as sketchy maybe as the university. I hate to say they're sketchy, but you know, it's all about the sports, and if they somehow score some event, they're going to kick us out. But we'll make provisions to move it.
Well, thanks. I was just concerned that there would be no venue if they canceled. That was my only concern.
I mean, that's always a possibility, but we have other places. The price isn't really the issue. They're all about the same. Marketplace is a huge hub of activity every weekend, I'm sure, but they would probably be more than happy to have some money to let us use the lot that's no longer being used for the COVID testing up there.
Mr. Treasury.
Thanks. Yeah, I would echo what Eric said, is that just basically hope that they don't decide to, it's my understanding it was, yeah, if they had decided to have some event that would preclude us from using the parking lot, it's important enough and that I think it would either be moved or rescheduled to a different date, but at the same location. Hope it doesn't come to that, because it's nice, obviously, when just one date is set. And this actually was held at the U of I last year in the parking lot. The electronics waste recycling is out at Parkland. This is the second year in a row, and it'd been quite a while before the one last year that there'd been a household hazardous recycling. We're going to try and hopefully keep it going every year. Would be nice, with some money obviously from the county, but I think we also get some grant money, so from some of it's paid from Illinois IEPA, so hopefully we can keep it going every year.
All right, anyone else? All right, seeing none. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? All right, moving on. Areas of responsibility. For policy, personnel, and appointments, we have adoption of resolution number 2023-38, amending the schedule of authorized positions for the Public Defender's Office. Do I have a motion? Storr, Lockshin. Any discussion? Mr. Storr.
I believe Ms. Pollock is in the audience here if there's any questions, or if she'd care to speak to the motion.
I believe this is my third time before all of you asking about this. I don't have anything to add, but I'm happy to answer any questions if something has arisen in the last week.
Who won the game?
We did not. They tried very hard and everyone was in a good mood and there was pizza to be had, but we did not win.
Someone once said, "It's if you don't win, then it's called a learning experience." So I do have a comment. All right. Thank you again for being here. And I appreciate all that you're doing for your department.
Thank you.
And, you know, you and I had a conversation the other day, and it was very enlightening to me. And I just really appreciate what Elizabeth is doing for the department, how she's taking charge and ownership of her department. And I think she should be commended for that. I think personally it's rare to see someone take so much personal responsibility for the success of their department. And I'm sure over time we're going to disagree on things, but nevertheless, I do want to commend her for taking charge of her department and doing all that she can to support our Sixth Amendment rights, right? Our Sixth Amendment rights, which are crucial for our society to be a society. But anyway, I just want to thank you, Elizabeth, for all that you're doing, and you have my wholehearted support on this action.
Thank you very much, and thank you for being curious enough to want to learn more about what we do. I appreciate it.
All right, anyone else? All right, seeing no more debate, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Nay. All right, that passes. Next, we have finance item, adoption of resolution number 2023-39, approving budget amendment BUA 2022-12-17-16, fund 1080, general corporate department 026, county treasurer, increased appropriation $27,012, increased revenue $0, to cover variance from the fiscal year 2017 and fiscal year 2018 accounts payable and general corporate bank accounts. Do I have a motion? Locke and Furtado, discussion. Furtado.
Yeah, I just wanted to mention that I was quite surprised that there were some folks that voted against this next time. I want to be really clear about this as finance chair. What this was there were mistakes that were made in how specific fees, I always call these like our weird revenue fees or our weird liabilities were recorded. And then they clearly were not found out. Like essentially what happened was when the books were reconciled, we could tell that there was a liability, but it just got carried over year after year until this treasurer and Orion from the auditor's office recognized it and said, this is a clear liability. Every year for the last, since 2017, we have been showing a deficit in these categories. It's not going away. It's staying pretty stable. We need to acknowledge it's an actual deficit and therefore appropriate money from the fund balance to balance it out. I mean, at the end of the day, is it a big deal if we vote no on this? No, it'll just be probably a no on our audit. But in my opinion, if we have a deficit on our books in year's end, it is our responsibility as a board to pay for that deficit from the fund balance and be transparent to the public about what our actual expenses are. And if you're going to vote no on it, you should at least have the courtesy to explain why. This is not something that you should vote no on with no explanation. In our books, if we have an expenditure, and to be clear, it doesn't matter when that expenditure happened, if it was 2017, if we know about it and we've been carrying it forward on our books, it should be acknowledged to the public. It is a deficit that's been on our books now for 6 years. Orion, who is no longer with us at the county because he went to RPC, has put a tremendous amount of time in making sure things get cleaned up. And I just find it really frustrating. This is like the last thing he did for us as he's leaving. And I'm worried that this vote is going to fail tonight. At the end of the day, is a footnote on our audit that big of a deal for $27,000? No, but I think it is not a good look to the public. This was a clear deficit that's out there, and all we're trying to do is say we acknowledge it, and we're going to allocate funds from the fund balance that acknowledge that deficit is there. And look, mistakes happen. You know what I'm saying? It definitely should have been noted and cleaned up a long time before it was. You know, in my opinion, it probably should have been, caught in 2018, 2019, but it wasn't. But it is now. So, I mean, we could just pretend we don't see it, but I just encourage everybody to vote yes on this. And that's all I have to say.
All right, anybody else?
Thank you for that explanation. Oops, so I'm too close. Dear Lord. I don't know if it's my hearing aids that are interacting with this. Is that what you think it is?
Try the other mic, maybe.
Well, then I won't be able to hear you, but that's okay. So anyway, now everyone's so quiet I can't hear anybody. But anyway,
I say that's not helping. If you want to go ahead and put your hearing aids back in.
Put it back in.
We're trying the other mic, Jim. Or Jeff. Jim's mic.
Is that better? Yeah. Hey, Stephanie, thank you so much. I appreciate your passion on that. And I agree the book should be cleaned up. And I believe we should be accountable and transparent with what we're doing. I have two challenges. One is, would it could be more transparent if we could explain to the public why it happened and how we're going to make sure it doesn't happen again. I think that would be a help in the transparency standpoint. Mistakes happen. I make mistakes every day. And so it would be an additional transparency aspect. Say, okay, yeah, we screwed up. I don't know, maybe we don't know why it happened, but now we've got policies, procedures in place, accountability, second checks, whatever, just to make sure it doesn't happen again. That would be my only counsel to that. And then I do agree we want to be absolutely accurate. So that's my next question. When I look on page 68, the way I understand this is the total amount is $27,000,011.83. But then when I look on 68, it's 2712. Should that be 2711.83 instead of 2712? I know it's just a couple cents, but am I wrong there? Or?
Yeah, I think they just rounded it up.
Okay, okay. We want to be accurate. Some of these other budget transfers are always accurate to the cent. It just so happens we're not on this particular case. Just for transparency and accuracy, we just were accurate even to the penny, if that's what we want to be.
Right. So just to be clear then, what that is so we would just be appropriating $27,012 from the fund balance to pay that bill, and then that at what would happen is it would put that money into the 2022 budget, and then the 17 cents would just fall back down into fund balance again. Do you know what I mean? So they're just appropriating a round amount of money. They're just moving money from one account to the other, basically. I mean, not really. The money actually is all in the same account, but like it is increasing our authority to actually pay that amount, to actually write it off the books, and to show in our ledger that it's going off the fund balance. But you're right, 17 cents then would, I guess, fall back into the fund balance because
it was just an observation, maybe a little nit, but all our other transfers are always down to the penny. And the one that we had challenges with is not. So that was no worries.
Any further discussion?
Just a quick question. Would going through and fixing something like this eventually have like a positive impact or any impact at all on things like our credit rating as a county? Or
through the hard work of Tammy and admin staff, I think everybody knows our credit rating got bumped up right on, I think we got the news on Election Day. I remember I got a text from Tammy on Election Day. I'm going to be blunt. I don't think our credit rating is ever going to go up. I mean, I would be ambitious, but part of your credit rating is based on like your poverty level and income level in your county, and sort of some of the liabilities you have as a county. I think we've probably gotten as good as we're going to get. I could be wrong. Maybe we could have one more bump up, but no, I don't think so. Again, I spoke with Tammy. I mean, it's not like this isn't keeping her up at night if we have this footnote. There's footnotes but I just feel like if we know that there's a liability out there, not acknowledging that in our balance sheet is a problem. And I mean, and I would say that no matter what it was, but I don't think it behooves us to act as if we haven't spent money or that we have received revenue that we didn't. You know what I'm saying? Like it doesn't. And again, this is just $27,000, but I think it's an important policy, right? But that's just me.
All right, anybody else? All right, seeing none, clerk, could you please call the roll?
Harper,
Yes.
Ingram,
Yes.
Locke,
Yes.
Lockshin,
Yes.
Rodriguez,
Yes.
Rogers,
Yes.
Sexton, Storr,
Yes.
Straub,
Yes.
Taylor,
Yes.
Thorsland,
Yes.
Banish Theronot,
Yes.
Williams,
Yes.
Wilson,
Yes.
Cowart,
Yes.
Esri,
Yes.
Furtado,
Yes.
Patterson.
Yes. And that motion passes. Next, we have adoption of resolution number 2023-40, approving budget amendment BUA 2022-12, 1759, Fund 1080, General Corporate, and 2611, County Clerk Surcharge Fund, Department 22, County Clerk, increased appropriation $13,089.15, increased revenue $122 to address budget shortages in office supplies, marriage surcharge, outside services, temporary staff, travel gas, and election worker lines. Do I have a motion? Thorsland and Taylor. Discussion? All right, seeing none, clerk, can you please call the roll?
Harper,
No.
Ingram,
Yes.
Locke,
Yes.
Lockshin,
Yes.
Rodriguez,
Yes.
Rogers,
Yes.
Sexton, Storr,
Yes.
Straub,
Yes.
Taylor,
Yes.
Thorsland,
Yes.
Banish Theronot,
Yes.
Williams,
Yes.
Wilson,
Yes.
Cowart,
Yes.
Esri,
No.
Furtado,
Yes.
Patterson.
Yes, and I at 16-2. Is that right?
Yeah.
Okay. So that passes. Next, we have adoption of resolution number 2023-41, authorizing payment of claims. Do I have a motion? Beth, Stephanie, any discussion? All right, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? All right, that resolution passes. Next is adoption of resolution number 2023-42, authorizing purchases not following purchasing policy. Do I have a motion? Williams and Locke. Is there any discussion? Mr. Wilson?
So most of these are the actual shortage of appropriations for all of that stuff that we did last week and a little bit today. So anytime that you have a purchase or that does not have an appropriation with it. So, you know, we did the vote about moving the money around for, what was it? sorry, I'm just looking at it. The Child's Advocacy Center, remember they didn't have enough money. So we've now moved all the appropriations there. But when the actual transactions occurred, there weren't appropriations enough to cover. And you'll notice that the dollar amounts are often different than the transactions because this is the dollar amount of appropriate, you know what I mean, that weren't available at the time when the check was being cashed. So that's what all of those are. I do want to mention the county clerk has something on here that the Illini Union did not provide an itemized vendor statement. And they have in the past, and this is because, you know, we use their site as a voting location. Basically the vendor has said, meaning the Illini Union, that they don't have the capacity to provide an itemized statement. And I just want to say publicly, that's nonsense. They have a big staff. They need to provide the kind of, if they want to get paid, they should provide the kind of documentation that is required for them to get paid. I don't know if I think it's still in my district. It used to be. I'm pretty sure it's still in my district. So I'm going to reach out to the clerk and just make sure it's okay with him, because I know we need to have a good relationship with the places where we vote. But I might reach out to them and say, this is inappropriate. Like you are supposed to send us an itemized invoice. That's not a huge ask. Departments across the U of I itemize invoices for all sorts of things. And I don't think they should get to tell us. I mean, this isn't the clerk's fault that the vendor's refusing to send an itemized invoice, but it's not acceptable. And they really should be sending an itemized invoice. That's not all they have to do is put on there, you were here for this many days. You know what I mean? Like, it's 2 more lines on the invoice. They should be able to do that. So I just wanted to say that. I doubt anybody from the Illini Union's watching, but I am going to try to reach out to them. And I will say this is not the first time as a county board member, I've reached out to the Illini Union. I think they're one of our most challenging voting locations, and have been now for a couple of clerks. They just make it very, very difficult to work with them at that location. So it isn't just the parking lot that they might have a sporting event at. There's other buildings on campus that also pose their own challenges.
All right, any further discussion? Mr. Harper?
Thank you, Kyle. Stephanie, maybe you can help me. I just now looking through there, I hadn't looked at it close enough. On the sheriff's line item, expenses, how come it was so much higher, or just underestimated, or $15,000, $15,641. Oh, I'm sorry.
Which one are you on?
The same thing. The sheriff, $15,641 for Diamond Drugs. It just said higher than expected.
Right. So if you recall, we voted for the money for this at the cow. Remember, he had a whole memo. There was a couple of different things that had happened. We had a relationship with a outside person, an outside group that was paying for some of the expensive drugs that we think we're going to get back. And then, so there were more like expensive drugs that we had to pay for. Remember, I believe that's what that, without the sheriff here, or the auditor, but I'm pretty sure that that's what it was.
Okay, I apologize. I didn't catch it before, and I just caught that number. So.
All of those ones besides the Illini Union that I just discussed are all part of, was basically the cow finance agenda last time.
Mr. Wilson?
Well, amen to Stephanie. I think we have our caucus meeting at Bunny's. Well, I'm not really bragging about that. It's not where I normally go, but now that I'm on the team, that's where they're at, so that's where I go. But I wouldn't go there normally, but that's okay. But a lot of people do. But I seem to notice I did receive an invoice. And it did say that what I ate or what I drank was actually articulated on my little receipt. So I think the Illini Union's in what century? In 21st century? I think they're in that century. They should be able to provide an itemized list. But that's not really what I want to talk about. what bothers me, and maybe it's me, but I don't like the title, purchase is not following the purchasing policy. And I think, I don't know, this is my second or third meeting. It seems like, is this a regular occurrence that different departments don't follow a policy? Or are we saying there's no policy for emergent funds and that's why it's on this list? Does that make sense to you what my question is?
So, I mean, there's all sorts of different ways that things get on here. If you didn't have a purchase order, if you accidentally paid tax, right? But one of our purchasing policy in our finance policies is that if you pay for something, there should be an appropriation for it. So these particular kind of things only happen at the end of the year when we've already paid the bills, but there wasn't enough money appropriated. So now all of these are covered. We've voted yes on all of these. The money is there and is appropriated, but because February is the last month we could clean up 2022's years, these are all things that actually happen in fiscal year 2022, right? So I would say yes, these typically in February, you'll see this particular kind of thing on policies not following purchase order. I do think maybe there was a few more this year than I've seen in past years, but I think in part, some of that is due to there being maybe we shouldn't be shocked that in a year that had record inflation, that there were more, that some of our expenses came in higher than we anticipated. But yes, this is, basically this is us acknowledging that this happened is what this vote is, right? As a board. And a board saying that this is sort of our oversight. It's us as a board saying, yes, we've seen this. I mean, yes, we're authorizing.
So you're saying it's an acknowledgement?
Yes, yes.
Okay, thank you. And then, I do want to say, I'm not want to say anything. Well, I think Bunny's really has a good Italian beef sandwich. So it's okay if you want to go to Bunny's. I just didn't want to discourage someone from not going there, but just want to say they do have a good Italian beef. But thank you. It's really an acknowledgement is what you're saying.
Chris, this better be about the agenda.
Ordinarily, I would kind of object to this sort of shameless advertisement, but I enjoy their fish sandwich, which is only slightly comparable to the fish sandwich that you can get at St. Patrick's this Friday tomorrow.
Mr. Williams.
Mr. Wilson, I'm going to have to vigorously disagree with you. Bunny's Italian beef sandwich is not good. But their fish is amazing.
So there you go. We can disagree on eating, but we could still vote and shake hands, right?
All right. Any other relevant discussion? All right. Seeing none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? All right. Next is adoption of resolution number 2023-43, encouraging the Illinois Department of Transportation to fulfill commitment to replace bridge. Do I have a motion? Mr. Esri, Mr. Harper? Discussion. Mr. Esri.
I can speak to this. And I want to thank, first off, Mr. Summers for putting this on the agenda. This overpass between St. Joe and Urbana, it's the first, if you're coming from St. Joe to Urbana, you have the overpass at St. Joe and they're interconnect with 74. Then you go 2 miles, and this is the overpass to the west towards Urbana. The majority of our farm ground is on the south side of 74, but we have a couple fields on the north side of 74. And come this spring, if that bridge were to be open, we would be driving tractors over it to farm those 2 fields. And in the fall, those fields usually go to the Fulls elevator, which is just down the road from 2000. It's at 1975, and we would be taking that overpass. Those 2 fields total 110 acres or so, and we would be using that overpass to deliver the grain to Fulls elevator. It's my understanding, so as of right now, that bridge is closed down, having been hit with a oversized load. and they deemed it unsafe for traffic. I'm not so sure it hasn't actually truly been hit even since they initially closed it, the initial hit that closed it, and it's been maybe hit again. It's my understanding that even before it was hit, this overpass was already scheduled to be replaced, reworked, and in large part because the actual height clearance of the overpass isn't to what it should be by today's standards, but it was to be replaced in 2024. Well, okay, great. It's shut down until then, but 2024, we're going to get a new bridge and be able to use it again. Well, start hearing about the idea that maybe they aren't going to fix it after it's been hit. And this is mainly from the people who live more right around that area, neighbors and fellow farmers and such. And then come to find out that, yeah, they've put out a statement that they aren't going to fix it, and they're actually going to basically remove it, is my understanding. I mean, they're going to take the time to remove all the dirt and everything on both sides of the interstate, not just remove the deck. So they're going to so anyway, it comes down to me, the idea, there's a couple ways I look at it, the big ones. The one way is it was already on the schedule. They already had the money, everything I understand, already had it appropriated in the budget to fix it in 2024. Now, I had heard it maybe got moved up to this year, 2023, but if it still takes till 2024, so be it. But okay, so it got hit and closed. Why does that in and of itself lead to the idea that we're just going to close it and abandon it? And the second biggest reason that I appreciate this being on here is the idea of the safety. Closing that overpass, granted, it's not used by a whole lot of people, but there are some residences north of it that I have no doubt would drop straight south, cross over the interstate and get on 150 and then maybe head into St. Joe or especially into Urbana. I mean, if they were going to the U of I, that would be a direct 150, 130 Windsor Road. You're right into the U of I for football game, basketball game, work. But a large part of it is agricultural. And by shutting that overpass down permanently, you're putting undoubtedly more agricultural traffic onto 150. And it's just the way it is. People don't, in general, don't really know how to drive around agricultural traffic, especially the slower tractors and wide equipment. So if you're putting people out on 150 more with that type of equipment, that's a danger in of itself that's increased, but it's also the danger of just where these same people drive on the not 150, the other roads. So we're having to travel more miles, period, and interact with more drivers. So we just have that added safety factor of the extra miles. And then you can also get into the idea of it's more miles, more fuel use, more time spent. Those are relatively minor in the big scheme of things. But the big one to me is the idea of the safety and the idea that if it was already appropriated, why not go through with it? It's one of those, if they were talking about putting a brand new overpass in and then decided against it, okay, it's a little hard. You could be disappointed, but it'd be a little harder to miss something that you never had. But since it's been there since it was part of, I'm sure that when the interstate was built, and now to just decide because it got hit once and it's been deemed unsafe, we're going to close it down. And as a final, I'm not going to say there wasn't like a public comment period for all the neighbors or people, just a general public comment, but if it was, I never heard about it. I do know they reached out to the landowners right around and they talked to some of the, I forget if it was, I think they talked to maybe the school district, the post office, and maybe the township, but they didn't ask the fire, or maybe it's, I don't remember, or maybe the fire department, but I think it was the fire department they talked to, but they didn't talk to the township. The fire department said don't close it. I think the school department's against it, or maybe the school department didn't. I don't think the post office really commented, but it was just, it's not just the immediate people. They reached out to truly the four landowners on the corners of it, but we all know that closing a bridge doesn't just affect those four landowners. and there's not even houses. It's truly landowners on the north side. There are no houses. So not that it can't affect them, but there aren't houses with people living in it. So it's just kind of a messed up situation all in all. And I would appreciate, again, Mr. Summers putting this on the agenda, and I appreciate if we could pass this. Granted, it's one of these that ultimately the IDOT's going to do what they're going to do, but it would show them that the county board as a whole would like to see it remain open for the citizens of the county to be able to use. Thanks.
Thank you. Any other comments?
Thank you, Chair Patterson. I had written some notes, and they're basically a very short version of what Aaron just said because he spoke so well about this. I'm definitely supporting this. I think it's totally so short-sighted, even just financially, to keep this closed and not continue with the original plan to revamp or replace it. Just on the wear and tear that we're going to have on the surrounding roads from, the heavy farm equipment and stuff, that's going to tear those roads up so much faster. And the other thing that really bothers me is the response times for emergency services. They've grown to rely on this, shortcut or whatever you want to call it. And they need that to have adequate response times, which we all know are longer than they should be once you get outside town. So I will definitely be supporting this, and I hope that IDOT actually will listen. Thank you.
Thought of one other thing to add. This isn't just a county effort. The local state reps, state senators are all aware of this and are all trying to do their part as well. I believe Mr. Faraci, Chapin Rose, Mike Marin, can't name them all, but they're aware of this, and they're trying their best as well at their level to hopefully get IDOT to reverse their decision, and I would like to publicly thank them for that as well.
All right, anyone else? Yeah, like I say, I know myself and Steve have talked to Senator Faraci about this, and he's been in communication with IDOT. Not overly optimistic about it, but I do know that they are hearing about it. So, all right. Seeing no further discussion, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? All right, that passes. Next item we have is a letter of support for the City of Champaign TIF District Extension. Does anybody have any discussion on that?
I support this. I know that the City of Champaign is in the middle of examining and thinking about their TIFs in a way to marshal their resources and put themselves in the best position specifically to address the Garden Hills Drainage District issues. This TIF doesn't directly impact that project, is my understanding, but it's part of their sort of landscape of how they're funding the city in order to accelerate that project as much as possible. And as we've discussed in ELUC and in general, that project has, been out there for decades at this point. While this TIF isn't specifically about that, they are retooling another one of their TIFs to help support that specifically, but it is part of their landscape of funding for the city and their plans. So it's an important piece for them. I have real strong opinions about TIF in general. It takes money out of our schools. I have strong opinions about TIF in general, but I will support this one.
Any further discussion? Mr. Williams?
Like Board Member Furtado, I also have very strong opinions about TIFs. I looked at the plan for this one. TIFs are supposed to be a vehicle to allow for cities to redevelop dilapidated communities. I looked at the plan, and it's not just an extension of the TIF. They actually want to expand the TIF to the surrounding areas to the west and north. But my biggest issue with TIFs is that they never tend to expire. Not only do TIFs take money away from schools, they also raise property taxes for everyone else. And as they continue to not expire, that money that should go back on the tax rolls is staying with the cities, forcing the tax rates to go up. So TIFs should not be approved willy-nilly. Now, I after reading really quickly the plan, I do support this one. But people need to understand TIFs raise property taxes. That's all.
All right. Anybody else? So,
You piqued my curiosity. So does this TIF have an expiration date, or does this go on for the next, I don't know, 50 years or so?
So what I looked is it's supposed to expire in 2025, and they want to expand it. They're going to expand it to cover more area, and extend it out another 12 or so years.
And it expires after that, or they just ask for another renewal?
TIFs tend not to expire, but I mean, Urbana just had a TIF expire. A TIF expired in Rantoul recently. In Chicago, they never expire, but I mean, most of downtown isn't a TIF, believe it or not, but.
Okay, thanks.
And we just did this, oh, sorry. We just did this for Muhammad. We did a similar letter for Muhammad's TIF last year, I think. I mean, really, our business is just being like, let it keep, like, we're just saying we support it, basically. Not everybody comes to us and asks us for this. You know what I mean? TIFs continue, I think, without asking us for this support, right? But sometimes they do. But I know we just did this for Muhammad over by their school. I want to say in 2022, wasn't it?
So one piece that I'm kind of needing some clarification on with the TIFs don't expire, but they have an expiration date. I just want to verify. So it is, they get close to the expiration date, and then they say, oh, actually, we want to keep this going. So we're going to keep it going for another X number of years. So it's not that they don't expire, it's that they're not allowed to expire. Is that what I'm understanding correctly? Okay, thank you.
all right. Any other discussion, comments, food recommendations? All right. So, as you can see, it's listed as a discussion item. I think what Steve is looking for is more of a just like consensus of support. As long as there's not any major objections, he would move forward with signing the letter. Speak now or forever hold your peace. All right. So looks like we can greenlight him on that. The next agenda item is the American Rescue Plan Act. Oh, okay. I didn't see you back there. I was like, uh-oh.
Good evening. We've included the update for this month. We were able to add some more year-end numbers since the county financial statements for December 31st. So some of those are included. A majority of those are included. There will still be a few expenses as of this month that would be counted towards 2022. And then we also began to move some of these contracts are not just based on a fiscal year, they're through the end of 2024. So if they still have funds that they haven't spent on their projects, we move that remaining amount over to this year. So those are some updates there. And then we continue to add finished projects into the chart and the memo. And I'm happy to answer any questions on specific projects or anything else.
Hey, Mr. Wilson.
Hey, Kathy, thanks for being here. I have 2 questions on status of projects and 2 requests. What's the current stage of the Mahomet Aquifer project? So it's been, I know that would pique your interest over there. I love Chris's discussion at the award that he got about drinking water. Is it Joliet that doesn't have water anymore or something like that? Or anyway.
Jeff, maybe we ought to kind of have a chat at your favorite dining location.
That'd be good.
And
I'll eat the fish, you eat the roast beef, and then, no, anyway. So what is the status of that? What's our next steps with that?
So they've received 1 payment so far, and they had helicopter work doing analysis of the ground and getting that data available for mapping for the aquifer. So they've been doing that process.
So I know it's been mapped, right? So how long does it take to figure out, analyze the data, and come up with a result?
Okay. They'll probably be working on that for about 3 more months at least before they even have preliminary results, and then they'll go out and do some additional field validation, verification, maybe some additional ground geophysics. And I'll just have to say that this is not like getting an X-ray and then having an immediate sort of thing. This is, in fact, I think you're going to have to buy me 2 beers to explain it. No, but I mean, geophysics is an indirect tool for measurement. And this is probably one of the most sophisticated types of technology of its kind in the world.
All right, thank you. Second question, where are we with what's our next steps with broadband?
So we're currently in negotiation of a contract with NextLink for the rural broadband infrastructure. We heard back from their attorney this week on proposed revisions to that agreement, and so we're working through those. Once we have that drafted and internally approved and everything, we would also do a similar agreement with Volo, and then those contracts would be in place. Those entities would also be applying for other grant money out there. So it's not, ours is just a small, well, I mean, a portion of their total funding that they need. So there are multiple factors, but we're currently in contract negotiation.
Thank you. So now my 2 requests. Request number 1, is it possible that, you know, it's broken down into about 11 different groups. Is it possible to have an owner of each part, like, let's say, affordable housing or community violence or county departments, and come in and give like a 5-minute discussion of where they see is going with their particular project?
We try to include those updates in the memo. Some projects are completed. I know we'll be doing a report, you know, once we get further along to try to sum up where we're at, especially for this coming budget this next summer. But yeah, that's a more detailed question since there's so many different contracts out there and so many different types of services.
I should have interrupted you, sorry.
No, it's good.
It would just be, I think it would be helpful to the community, helpful to the board, if a certain person in charge of one of these individual projects would actually come and just talk to their project and how they're being benefited by it and how they see it's helping the community, et cetera, et cetera. It just would be nice to hear that. For me personally, I don't know anybody else, but it would be nice for me. And then the last request. So on the last request, on your financials forecast, on your financial forecast page, is it possible, at least for this year 2023, to show the quarterly spend rather than waiting to the end of the year to find out whether we spent the money or not?
We actually update it monthly, so each month.
So it's just not here. It's just somewhere. It's on the other report, right?
There's a.
I was actually looking on page
yeah.
whatever it is. I need better glasses too. So besides hearing aids, but anyway, on the revenue and expense projections, is it this is a lot of information, but is it possible for 2023 to show how our quarterly spend is? Does that make sense to you, or is that too much work?
Do you mean future or what's been spent?
So here we have projected 2023, right?
Mm-hmm.
And we have actual 2023. So we're going to finish the quarter here in another month. Why wouldn't I put in Q1 to see how I'm doing on my spend? And then when Q2 shows up, I would show Q2. And if by Q2, into Q2, I said, man, I haven't even spent half of it yet, maybe there should be more thought put into the process. Does that make sense?
We actually will update those numbers monthly.
Okay.
But
thanks.
Yeah, currently we just have end of December available for this report. And so next month's report, we should at least have January filled in for this column. So you'll at least see as of January 31st in the next month's report. So we do update it monthly.
Oh, I got that.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
One thing that I've noticed is we've, and we might be doing that again today, we've added some internal county projects. So I know we gave some software money to the public defender. We gave software money to the state's attorney. We're considering software money today for the assessor. But I don't see, oh no, the state's attorney is on here. Oh, never mind. They're on here. I'm sorry. I swear I looked at this before. I looked at it today, and my brain is just apparently not that great. So never mind. Forget what I was about to say. So you are adding them as we go. So just pretend I didn't say that. Two other quick things. One, I do want to make sure that we're going to hear from the Parks District here in a minute. And just so for those of you who weren't on the board before, that if we do decide to allocate money to that, that would come from our Preventing Community Violence Fund. Which I think has like $2.something million left in it. But then we have the rest of that money to consider. We had a community violence task force that came up with recommendations, brought them to the full board. They didn't make any decisions. Aaron, you were on that, right? I think what would be a good idea is to reconvene that. So we have things that are out there. We've got proposals that are out there, proposals that I've heard from various board members that they want to bring. But I do think getting that decided sooner rather than later is important because we want to make sure we spend that money down. So what I'm suggesting is that by March 24th, which is a Friday, if you want to if you're a board member and you want to champion a proposal, try to get those into Steve and to Kyle, and then I believe Kyle is going to have to reappoint somebody to that committee. And then we just hold a meeting of that committee. I don't think we'd have to hold a bunch, but reconvene that committee because I think we did good work in that committee to allocate the money the first round. And I think we should do the same for the second. I will say, though, I do think the Urbana Parks District, if we can, after we hear their proposal today, give them an answer tonight would be good, if at all possible, just because I know they're under construction deadlines and things like that. So that's just sort of my suggestion. But I do think let's reconvene that committee so we could hear all those different proposals that are still out there. And if you've been sitting on something, this is it, right? Because after this, really then all we have left is a little bit of that water money left and then the money for broadband. And we will be done allocating. And that is just spending it, right? So I think that's the position. I think we should all think by, when we kind of go on a sort of break by July, we want everything to be allocated. That should be the goal. The other thing is I wanted to know, if you look, and I don't know the exact dollar figures, the appropriation projected for 2023 is higher than what we've actually appropriated because, for example, we had the money for the Head Start facility appropriated in 2022. That hasn't happened yet. My guess is we'll be fine because we're going to be doing that broadband project through the, 2026 probably. But if we do end up needing to put out, actually have a bigger appropriation, at some point this year, we'll come back to the board and say, hey, listen, this has gone faster than we thought, and we're going to actually need the money in 2023. And Tammy and Kathy and I will keep an eye on that. But I mean, we're nowhere near right now. We have millions of dollars sitting there. So we're nowhere near right now. But just to be aware, if for some reason, say that broadband project goes a lot faster than we all think, and we actually spend all $10 million this year, we'd have to come back and ask the board. We don't have, because some of the 2023 projects moved to this year, or 2022 projects moved to this year, we're not going to have, we don't have that much money. We don't have $32 million appropriated this year. So just so everybody knows that. But that's just sort of from the finance side. So March 24th, if you, and I mean this for any board member, if you have a proposal that you want to be considered, and the public too, if you have a proposal though that you want to be considered by the Community Violence Task Force, get it into us in the next month, because then we could convene our committee and make those decisions.
Who's the us? Who do I write it to? Who do I send it to?
If you would get the community groups to send their proposals to, I think, the board chair, because he's the one who assigns things to the committees.
All right, thanks.
And for that task force for the community violence, I believe the only member that's not currently on the board is Mr. McGuire, so the Republicans would need to put forward a member who wants to serve on that committee. All right, anybody else have any questions of Kathy? All right, thanks. All right, next we have the Urbana Park District request.
Good evening, everyone. I'm Tim Bartlett. I'm the Executive Director at the Urbana Park District. Hopefully you can all hear me good. I don't want to get too close or too far back. I'm here with our staff superintendent.
I'm Corky Emerson. I'm the Superintendent of Recreation for the Park District.
We're really glad to be here and appreciate being on the agenda tonight. First off, I just want to start out by thanking the County Board for being a partner in Parks and Recreation for my entire career. I've been with the district 30 years, and 25 of that has resulted in a lease here at Brookins with the gymnasium, and we've had a long-term activity use of the open fields, athletic fields around, so we thank you. We couldn't do what we do without having that. Tonight we're really excited to share with all of you plans for our new Health and Wellness Center. We did get a chance to talk with the Community Violence Task Force, made a presentation, I think it was back in the fall, and had a really good discussion with that group. I think some of the things that they had talked to us about, challenged us with, is really talk to us about being able to address the equity, access, and the impact on really reducing community gun violence in the county. So I think tonight that's what we're prepared to do, give you an update, talk about that. At that time, I believe we did ask for $1 million. I know that's a lot of money, but we'll go over our budget tonight, and you'll see that that's kind of where we are in the gap, and that we really believe that the ARPA funds for this project would really speak to the true identity of what ARPA funds, we think, mean, which is restoring and healing our communities. We've gone through a really intense COVID period. We've had a lot of disconnect, and this is a really great opportunity not only to bring something to the neighborhood, but to Urbana and to the overall county. So we thank you all for that. We had a really good discussion, as I mentioned, with the task force. And tonight we wanted to kind of pick it up where we left off. I want to draw your attention to a couple of things. Some of you that didn't hear about this project yet may be wondering, how did they come up with this idea? Where was the impetus for doing this? So I want to address two of the items up on the screen. The top image is kind of a word cloud that we did with some of our community meetings and our focus groups, but there are really three essential things in our whole strategic plan, which is year 4 of 5, that we were charged by the community to do. One was to restore Crystal Lake Park. If you've been to the park recently, you'll notice it's been greatly improved. We're almost nearing our last few projects. In total, we'll have probably invested around $30 million in that park. Again, that's probably over a 10 or 15 year period when we started the renovation, but it was still very important to the community. The other thing we did was continue to commit to our You Belong Here mission, which is simply everyone's welcome and everyone's accepted as they come. And that's, very important value in Urbana. The third area that we were charged with is complete the Kickapoo Rail Trail. And you'll notice, I'll talk a little bit on the lower diagram, but it does come right just south of Weaver Park. And we did secure funding through DCO, and we're working on acquiring that. If you've ever tried to acquire DCO funds, it takes a lot of effort. But we have commitments to be able to build the rest of that 24.5 mile corridor and place a trailhead facility at the north end of Weaver Park. So there would be something additional to that. And the last thing is provide a new health and wellness center in Urbana. As I mentioned, we're very grateful to be at Brookins, but we know that it's not a comprehensive health and wellness facility. And just to be clear, when we say health and wellness, we don't provide medical services. We don't necessarily provide mental health services, but it's a place to have others come in that can help with those ideas and needs. We just met with public health yesterday. We've had ongoing discussions with Carl and OSF, for drop-in and mobile clinics, things like that. But it's really for the rest of the community to have a place to meet, come together, certainly come to events and activities. Hopefully it'll be a daily destination. So those are the 4 charges. So I did want to talk a little more about the big picture. The lower diagram shows you the buildable area. You can kind of see right next to Prairie Park, which is 22 acres. We'll basically carve out the 2 baseball diamonds and build the facility in that location. We are also doing an athletic survey and study to ask Urbana residents what they'd like to see overall throughout Urbana. So we had about 800 respondents, and we're doing 2 different focus groups to really drill down a little deeper to find out what kind of organized, meaning sports or athletic type things, and then general recreational pursuits, trails, outdoor activities, play fields, things like that. So we hope to get a lot of information. I'm also adjunct faculty in the Department of Landscape Architecture at the University of Illinois, and I've studied this site since 2020 and 3 semesters prior to that, looking at what we call the super block, and that's the area that's bounded by Main Street on the north, Learman Avenue, Washington the south, and then Baker's Lane that separates us from the Scottswood subdivision. We spent a lot of time and effort really looking at this, and I think from a student perspective, the takeaway was that we have a lot of really rich resources right in this area. Probably some connecting trails, a signature landscape would really start to tie things together in this area. Corky will talk about some of the benefits and the people that will be coming and the numbers in a little bit here, but we really have a great opportunity to continue to work with the county, Urbana schools, and Urbana parks to really turn this into a really special place. Right now, we're doing also a new master plan to tie Prairie Park and Weaver Park together. So we'll have about 82 acres right in that area, plus Canada Ball Field and some of the leased fields. So essentially, we have an equal size space that's equal to Crystal Lake Park. So I do want to address the equity part of that right now. One of the goals of our commissioners was if we were to build a health and wellness center in Urbana, where would we put that? And some of the requirements that they had stated that I think really are demonstrated here is that we really needed to be located in a neighborhood of need where there's a lack of facility, lack of ability to get to a lot of other places, and that these high hope neighborhoods would really benefit from having something on the east side. If you know anything about our general park layouts, we have Crystal Lake Park and the Anita Purvis and the pool and Lake House all on the north side. On the west side of Urbana, we have the Indoor Aquatic Center at the school campus, and we have Carl and Blair Park, which we call sister parks. If you've been by Blair Park lately, you'll notice it's been greatly improved, so there's a lot of resources on that west edge of Urbana. But when you look on the east side, there's not quite that same level of service. And so this would give us a chance to locate, a signature park of scale and meaning on this east side of Urbana. Certainly the users and the benefactors are both inside the city of Urbana and outside of our district. From a staff perspective, we just want to serve the community. We know that physical needs, mental needs, a place to exercise, a place to connect, meet your fellow residents would really benefit all of Urbana, all of Champaign County. And I should mention, all of these facilities would be available to anyone, whether you're in the city, in the county, or wherever. So we're really excited about that. Let's see, let me get to my notes. I think I'm ready for the next slide. I just want to talk a little more in detail now about the building and the site and some of the details. You'll notice the large white box, that's representational of the scale of the building. Corky will talk a little more about the inside and some of the features that we have, but just from the site development, you can see we're still relying on some of the outdoor fields. We have the sled hill. There'll be entrance and access off Washington Street that would connect with the school next door at Dr. Williams Elementary School so that school kids could come back and forth. We greatly envision a lot of programs and activities and just use, if for no one else, with the school right there. So we have a lot of parking and access. Some of the outdoor features I want to point out, we do have outdoor basketball. We have a destination playground that's just north of the building. You can see some of the blue color. That's the spray ground that would be located there. And then just north of that, a large pavilion, large prairie area, a large wetland that will receive all the stormwater management. So we've applied a lot of green technology, green practices. We're including a solar array on top of the roof. While it's not a LEED building, it certainly has a lot of green development. All of the trees, at least along Washington, will be retained. And obviously we'll go back and put in another signature landscape that's comparable to our other facilities. What we really like about the outdoor amenities, and I highlight that, is that for people that might want to come often, daily, this could be a daily destination. All of the outdoor amenities would be free and open to the public. Obviously, a spray ground would be seasonal, so during the winter, it'd be drained and not operable. But with the picnic areas, the playground, basketball, outdoor play areas, there's a lot to offer the neighborhood and anybody that would come and visit there. So we're really excited about that site plan, and I think Corky's going to give us some updates about the inside and the user groups next.
Yeah, so moving to the facility itself, just kind of an overview of what will be included in the facility. Of course, we have a foyer welcoming area as in that top picture on the right. Included in that, we will also have some art. If you've been to the Champaign Library, you've seen some of the art that hangs in there. Binky is the artist who did that, and we are actually working with her on something specific from a wellness wheel perspective to, again, soften the facility, make it welcoming, and as Tim mentioned earlier, the whole "you belong here" means a lot to us. We're also working with another artist when you come in the front door, having a big mural that represents all of Urbana, Champaign County. So again, trying to make it a real welcoming environment as you come in the door, looking to do more throughout as we get closer to knowing the exact amount of money we have to work with. We may do more throughout the facility, but art is important in this facility to help bring in that warm, welcoming feeling. So we will have that in the front way. The basketball area or the gym floors, we will actually have 2 high school sized gym floors, and they will be able to be split in halves or 4s. So it would give us lots of opportunities to be able to do multiple things at once, which obviously is a bit different than what we're able to do here at Brookins now. I've been here 23 years, and I started out as the athletics manager here 23 years ago, and we get a lot of people in that gym, and it's spectacular, but we can do way more with this kind of facility. It will have a walking track that will walk around both sets of basketball courts. Not sure if any of you have ever been to Leonard Center, but it's basically about the same size as that as far as a walking track is concerned, and the courts. It will have two, we call them land fitness rooms or multi-purpose rooms, so aerobics, spin bikes. So there'll be two of those rooms. We will have one equipment room, which is treadmills, free weights, cardio equipment. So we'll have that room. And then we will also have a community space room. We envision that to be our place for our partners. I'm kind of getting ahead, but as long as I'm talking about the room, I'll go ahead and mention it. So we've got a lot of partners, and we would love to have, whether it's public health or trauma resiliency, being able to offer programs, sessions, those kinds of things to help the community so that we can manage and take care of the 8 dimensions of the wellness wheel. So the goal of the Park District's Health and Wellness Center is to offer a welcoming and motivating environment that safely engages and benefits everyone in our community. The facilities will be a significant expansion from our offerings here at Brookins, as I mentioned earlier. By, one, we have all the fitness rooms and equipment rooms, but we also have multiple gym floor space, the walking track. I bring that up. I think it's important to bring up because with our soccer fields and Brookins Gym, that is our most visited site in the Park District. We have around 100,000 visits a year. So when you talk about equity of where you put the facility, we think we're in a perfect spot because we're going to serve some people we're probably not serving, and everybody else is still going to come to us because they're already coming here to Brookins. So that's important. It'll be a physical community asset for decades to come. We're over a 100-year agency, 115-year agency. We've provided parks and rec facilities for a long time, and programs and activities, parks, and we'll be here in another 100 years. So that will be sustained in our management and operation through our integrated system that you've all seen or heard of or been a part of if you've been a part of the county board with Brookins. The facility will transform Urbana through violence reduction and increased individual and community and health wellness, community health and wellness. So violence reduction, our portion of violence reduction is giving people healthy lifestyles, getting them involved, keeping them active, partnering with trauma resiliency groups and DREAM. We do a lot of partnering, and that also helps with us providing access outside of what we plan to do for this new facility. So, by incorporating our You Belong Here philosophy, and not only philosophy, as Tim mentioned earlier, it's a strategic pillar, and we believe that philosophy from our board all the way down through our part-time staff. You can see, you might have seen on the front page, when we say You Belong Here, it's in multiple languages. If you've seen summer camp t-shirts running around Champaign County, it says You Belong Here in several languages. We've got translation services for any of our publications. Not everything. We're trying, we're striving, but we do a lot more than we used to do. So we plan to increase access and opportunity by providing a signature recreation facility incorporated into a signature park in East Urbana, which will provide equity in facilities. Tim was hitting on that earlier in his talk where, we have Meadowbrook Park, we have Crystal Lake Park Pool, we had Brookins. Now we're going to have even a better site and connect it with the KRT, which will then give you opportunities to go throughout Champaign County, at least to the east. job opportunities for local youth in our community, it's important to know that our business, the Park District, is the first job for many, many, many youth. In the summer alone, well, before COVID, I'd like to have this number back, but before COVID, we would have 300 part-time employees in the summer. And those are youth, and they are youth that have never worked before. And it's our goal to, I started at a Park District when I was a youth, and it's our role to mold them and help them understand what holding a job is and work ethic, and you know, maybe even guide them through a career path of some sort. It doesn't have to, when people think of Park Districts, sometimes you think of just the Parks and Rec professional. He's a planner. We've got educators. We've got the whole works on our staff. So it's kind of like a miniature city, right? And then I talked about the community meeting space, which to me, I sit in on a community compact. I'm sure you all are aware of the U of I's community compact that they're working on to provide broadband and transportation, working on the barriers in the community. They have helped support a technology space at the Martin Center. And that's way west, right? So why not make our east site in Urbana here a community hub where we can work with our partners, the school district, public health, Urbana Neighborhood Connections. We do a lot with them as well. And then of course, Dream, we do lots and lots with them. I talked with them, actually Tracy Dace presented right after we did at the task force meeting. But so moving on real quickly, I know we're using some time here. So we had a cost estimate for our facility in August. In August, that pre-bid number came in at $14,638,622.92, exact change on that one. With that, we've got a UPD funds. We have a bond reissue that we did a couple years back. It also helped pay for the work that was done at Crystal Lake Park, the renovation. We've had roughly 1.8 million in donations and pledges that were all citizens. No, all citizens. So all community members, no businesses, corporate, anything of that nature. So we have a fund balance. We're committing $1 million of fund balance towards this. We have a park grant, which is through the Illinois Department of Natural Resources for $2.5 million, which was kind of the kicking off point for our fundraising of this goal, because park grant is something that's only been done twice in our career. Well, it's only been done twice, period. But it's not something that comes up all the time, and we were fortunate to be one of the few out of the many that applied for the dollars. And then we also were able to secure through our legislators $3 million of DCO money. On top of that, we were just notified that we have or are anticipating another $2 million from the city of Urbana's ARPA funds. And then that gives us a total of $13,347,493. And Tim's going to talk about the timeline of the project here in a minute, but based on pre-bid, which we've been told some things are better, some things have kind of flattened out, and some things may be a little bit worse as far as the trades and materials. So we're hoping for really good bids. Definitely hoping that it doesn't grow much more than where it's at. But that's a rough outline of what our budget is, and then I'll turn it back over to Tim.
Ms. Corky mentioned, we have about a gap of about 1.3 million that's known. Certainly when the bids come in, we'll have that number, but you can see our schedule. Right now, the project's out to bid. We'll have that bid closing around March 14th. We'll have recommendations with the architects and our board during that March 14th to the 23rd period. We're hoping and planning on a special board meeting March 28th to approve the bids, and the groundbreaking is scheduled for May 6th. So as Stephanie Furtado mentioned, you know, our board is getting ready to make some final decisions. Any help and support that, you know, we could gain from the county would be greatly appreciated. The timing would be ideal. But the last thing I really want to kind of leave you all with is, you know, this is a really big opportunity to make a big difference in our area, not only in this neighborhood, in that park, but again in Urbana and throughout Champaign County. We don't get resources like ARPA funds all the time. So carefully selecting projects that will be lifetime, you know, facilities that will last a long time and really keep giving back over and over to us is really critical. That's why this project was selected and the timing was right. And we really just hope you all would agree to be a partner and continue to work with us to bring this project to fruition. Now that's a lot of information. We did it pretty fast. You might have a lot of questions. So we would be happy to answer any questions. And if you needed any other detailed information, we could certainly get it. Be happy to do so. Thank you for having us here tonight, and happy to answer questions.
All right, does anybody have any questions?
I'll try to make it super quick. The only thing you kind of mentioned, the facilities will be available to anyone. That was kind of a bullet point. I assume that there will probably be a fee structure for usage, like Leonard Center, usage of some of the indoor facilities, and you're probably mostly talking about the outdoor facilities kind of being available to anybody that's around. Mm-hmm. Will there be a fee difference for people who are, if they're using the interior, if they are within or without, inside or outside of the park district's boundaries? Because I know that like Weaver Park is bordered on its east and north side by unincorporated Urbana.
Mm-hmm.
Correct. Go ahead, and then I'll add a comment.
So one thing we've been doing with our You Belong Here campaign is we've been going to different neighborhoods, Urbana. Hopefully everybody's heard of Urbana here. And when we take Urbana out, we're going to Ivanhoe Estates. We're going to outside our boundaries. Our goal here at this facility, which I did not mention that, but from an access standpoint, we are working to incorporate a $30,000 scholarship budget for members, and we will be attracting those members by going through our community with Urbana, and that $30,000 will actually get 210 members into the facility. So with our regular scholarship program, the things that we've done over the years, because I've always been the one who's approving them, is that we waive non-resident fees. So, but these that $30,000 and all the scholarships we've been giving out with Urbana, don't matter where you're from, and they're full ride scholarships. They're not percentage based.
I was just going to add too, we also have a reciprocal program with Champaign Park District, so anybody in Champaign would be able to use facilities, at the same rate. And we're working very intently with our Urbana Parks Foundation. One of their main goals and one of their pillars is to raise funds every year for youth and family scholarships. That's probably been the biggest question and probably one of the biggest concerns, frankly, with this project. Can we create access and make sure that, we provide the services that people need? We're working on it. We're going to do everything we can do to reduce, eliminate, break down barriers, because we know people want to come and they will come, but we've got to make a way for them. So I think by enlisting everybody's help and doing some new things differently, we're starting to talk with the city of Urbana about block grants dollars. Could we really talk about how those dollars could be used more creatively? Certainly getting people the services they need and where they want to go and their family, it's pretty important. So I think by some new innovative ways, working on with our foundation and making it an annual goal every year to raise enough money to try to get as many people. Now, I couldn't sit here and tell you that we can guarantee 100% access, no cost, to anybody and everybody. We certainly got to pay some bills too and make sure that we can keep the facility, going. But if people want to come, we're going to find a way. The last thing I'll mention, in addition to what Corky and his staff will be offering, we'll still have community events and free things and activities. So there'll be ways to get people into the facility and to have fun, whether it's a school days out or a special event or what have you.
Cool. I appreciate that. It was mostly trying to think about the fact that you're right there on that border, and I'm with a group that shovels the sidewalks in front of the school there, and I always watch the kids come out of that school and pour to the east into that neighborhood, and so yes, and having it connected and as much connectivity as you can have for the after school stuff would be fantastic. Thanks for answering that.
Yep. I just had one last piece that I forgot to mention. We will also have, like we've had here in the past, is free open gym times. So there will be some free opportunities as well.
Yes.
Mr. Storr.
Thank you. I know that the Champaign County Forest Preserve District has said that they would be interested in partnering with the Urbana Park District to kind of help make up some of the help provide some support for the county residents to participate.
Absolutely. I know one of the goals of the Forest Preserve is to try to have a stronger urban presence. A lot of people think it's a rural organization. Probably one of their biggest constituent groups is in Champaign and Urbana. So if we had satellite programs or facilities for them to offer, we think that'd be terrific. And as Corky mentioned, we're talking with all the groups about doing the same thing. Could they use this hub as a place to promote what they can offer to enrich everybody? So in some ways, we're not the whole cake, we're the main facilitators. Certainly we'll own, operate, and be responsible for the building. But it could be a situation where lots of other providers are there offering services.
So just full disclosure, this is something I think about a lot. I'm currently on sabbatical from the U of I under an American Council for Learned Societies fellowship to write a book about parks and equity and race in Cleveland, Ohio. So I've been studying and thinking about, I was just in Cleveland last week doing research about the idea about how parks and park spaces are specifically and incredibly important to building racial equity in communities, and that the spaces that they provide have to be part of our efforts to reduce crime and give people opportunities to come together in positive. So I've been reading like past federal legislation and local things in a different location and visiting their centers, and I do think that we as a county are underserved in particular in Urbana. So I want to say there's 3 reasons I think that this is important. One, just what I just said, is that if you look at communities that are thriving, if you look at communities that have opportunity, they just have less crime. And parks not only provide space to be healthy and to engage in structured activities, but I think the youth employment opportunities are incredibly important. That's one of the things I've been looking at Cleveland is like all the different ways that youth employment is centered on parks and how that is very much considered like if we really want people to engage in positive lifestyles, they have to have an opportunity to get work. At the end of the day, it's so much of the violence in our community is because there aren't job opportunities. And so for me, that's a really important aspect of this. The second thing is I think that the community room space is really important. You'll remember when we were on our community violence task force, one of the things we heard a lot from groups is we need space to meet. And so having a space for that, and I'm going to just really challenge you, that is available at either no cost or free for these community groups to come do their programs, because a lot of times there's programs in search of space. And then the third thing I'll say is my particular bias. I support the different programs we're doing full-heartedly, but I think as much of this ARPA money that we could put in to fixed infrastructure that's going to last beyond when the lifespan of the ARPA grant should be our priority. And I will note that for the county, this is the only fixed infrastructure proposal that we're considering for Urbana, in part because they haven't come to us. So like when we had our environment land use meeting to talk about water projects, they didn't bring us any. So this would be I know we're considering for Champaign a fixed water project in Garden Hills, but there's no equal project we're considering in Urbana. This is literally the only infrastructure project that Urbana has brought to us. And we've been doing projects in the rural areas. We're putting a full quarter of our money into rural broadband, into a fixed infrastructure project. This is the only project that we're considering for Urbana. And then the last thing I'll have to say is I do think I would like to challenge Urbana that they should be giving their block grant money, their CDBG money, to the operation of this facility, specifically to break down racial equity, because the way they handled their CDBG money in this last round was unacceptable. And this could be a positive way for them to come up with something good to do with their CDBG money. And the last thing I'd like to say is, I think maybe, because I know I could kind of sense that folks, it's been a long meeting, but like maybe could we have a brief discussion about like how much money we would be interested, if we're interested in, if you saw their timeline, if they're going to do this project, they need to make a decision. So we as a board, I think, need to make a decision if we're going to invest in this project. So would anybody like to throw out a proposal, or, if you're not interested, say, hey, we're not, you know what I mean? Like, would anybody like to start that conversation?
Well, Stephanie seemed pretty enthusiastic about it. You have any ideas? Wayne?
I'll start the bidding at $200,000.
Oh, jeez. Oh.
Chris?
Mr. Interlocutor, I suggest a larger figure, at least 500,000. Back to you.
Just to highlight, I think, and echo something that Dr. Furtado said, as somebody who was on the Community Violence Reduction Task Force, that meeting space really did come up a lot. And if that's something where we are able to go back to the other groups who are being benefited by that money and say, look, you have a space with the Urbana Park District, that would, I think, definitely fit well within that community violence reduction money. And I could see doing 500,000 easily as well, knowing that it would benefit those groups.
I'm very excited about this. I live in Urbana. I am raising my children in Urbana. But more importantly, my day job has me serving a lot of families who live in this neighborhood. So what I'll tell you and challenge you at the same time is I'm going to support whatever my colleagues decide to throw at you. But I would really challenge you to do everything in your power to make sure that the families that are within walking distance of this facility are not priced out of it. Because, my back of the napkin math here is that if you are promising $30,000 in scholarships, and that would cover 210 memberships, that's still $143 a year, which, my family can afford that. That's fine. But my family doesn't live in this neighborhood. And really, we're going to be okay no matter what parks you have available. But the families in this neighborhood, they can't pay $143 a person. So I hear you, money is short all over, we have to keep the lights on, I get all of that, but I would challenge you to make sure that if you're going to invest in this neighborhood, that you're investing in the people of this neighborhood. Because to me, this is great. This is such a great, resource for our community, but if it's inaccessible to the people who live right here, it's not worth anybody's time.
Just one more quick comment to that point. I was doing some research on the Martin Center on my phone while we were talking, and I know it's significantly less than other Champaign Park districts. Like at the Leonard Center, membership is more than the Martin Center membership, even though they have very similar facilities just based on neighborhoods they're in. But also, full disclosure, I work at Human Kinetics, and we as employees receive a membership if we would like one to the Martin Center. And as we filled out that paperwork, there was also for residents of Shadowwood full access. There was scholarship access for the people who were in the neighborhood right across the street there. And yeah, that's something that sold out, I guess. From what I heard, that was very high in demand, and the people who are in the neighborhood were very ready and willing to take advantage of the facility. And I love that my window right now at work looks over the facility and I see it getting used. So yeah, I would love to see something that definitely embraces the community and makes sure that they have very easy access, if not free for everybody. I understand we can't do free for everybody, but.
I also support this. I think it's amazing. I do have a question about how you're going to interact with the schools. I know you said that you want to be connected. So will the students have some kind of free membership or discounted membership? If you can elaborate on that.
Well, one of the things that we've been part of with the school district for lots of years is Splash. And some of the Splash funding options are drying up because they're grant funds. And so we're already in discussion with the school district on, like Dr. Williams School actually does not have the funds for Splash, so they're doing different things and we're working with them on that. But ultimately our goal is how can we work with them to make a sustainable after-school program across all the schools. Right now there's 2 or 3 different programs that are happening at different schools. There's after school, there's Splash, so our goal is to find a way to work with them as far as a combined project, right? So if it's after school, then our facility will be open for that. If you know anything about the schools, after school, it's hard for them to get groups in there. So the groups that we're talking about that need the community rooms, there's no space available. And so this school, especially with Dr. Williams School, will be a good one for us to be able to move kids over to our place. As far as free access, I mean, I think we will definitely make scholarship opportunities. I think we'll hit some of those students from Dr. Williams in the Learman neighborhood area. And we will continue to go out into the neighborhoods for our events that we do at the township. And we go out to Steer Place, Silver Water area, your trailer park areas, all of those. And that's where we're handing those scholarships out. Obviously, if our goal, I say $30,000, but our goal is to get as much as we can, you know, as Tim mentioned, trying to bring the foundation out, trying to bring more money in. We're also going to be working with some of those corporate groups that maybe didn't help us build the facility, but is there a way to tag some more dollars in? And obviously, ultimately, our goal is to get everybody. I mean, look at Brookins. I mean, 23 years ago, we used it for a program and that was it. And then my philosophy was, we've got a space here, let's use it. So let's get people in. And we do that because the rentals that we do have there are cheap, really cheap. You know, so that's the kind of things we need to do to make sure that facility is full at all times. Does nobody any good to sit there empty. So,
just a quick comment to add to obviously in Parks and Recreation, which is a totally nonpartisan service and government function that we offer, geopolitical boundaries don't help us. We didn't make those up. We wish we could break them down, but there is still this concept of who pays the tax dollars, who should benefit, and if you don't, you shouldn't get that benefit. We don't adhere to that. We understand, the policies and the why on that, but I'm just suggesting for delivery of services that does not work, and we're committed to overcoming as many of those barriers as we can. Some we may legally not be able to overcome, but we definitely see a change of when I first started 30 years ago, that was a strict rule. If you were out, you're out, period. That line is blurry. People know that the services are needed, that our society has changed, yet we're stuck in these political boundaries for a lot of reasons, we understand, but again, delivery of services, providing preventative services that'll really change maybe how people think about guns and violence, and providing services people need daily. That is our goal.
I'll just make a comment here, since I'm one of the outside rural areas. A lot of good points you have presented, Stephanie. The youth employment. So many youth don't have very good work habit. From the rural perspective, just for me, I haven't spoken to anybody here in our caucus or the rural area. I could support up to $500,000. Not anymore, because I know there's still some money left. And I know I've talked to a number of mayors in these small communities. I said, if you got sidewalk work, this or that, please ask that request, because I've said it here before, these small towns don't have the ability to raise sales tax money like you do in Champaign-Urbana. But the good you can do, I appreciate what you presented. And from a old farm boy who lives east of town, I could go along up to 500,000, no more.
Mr. Wilson.
Thank you, Chairman. Thank you, gentlemen. Really appreciate your professional presentation. It's well thought out. From a process standpoint, this is billed as presentation and discussion. I don't think the county board should put a hedge or a commitment to amount of funds at this point. And Wayne started out with $200,000, and now we're about $500,000. But I don't think we should bank that yet, right? Because I think, is it March 24th? All the other items are being brought in, et cetera, et cetera. So from a process standpoint, Stephanie, I understand where we're going, but we also have members that are not here, that are not weighing in their understanding from the packet that this is discussion. So should we really tend toward a decision on a discussion basis?
So I think we can, and I think we should. On all of the ARPA, there's no vote required. So none of it is like well, let me say that though. There will be a vote for this because it is another government agency. So we will have to do an IGA, an intergovernmental agreement with them. But we need to be able to direct staff to put that together. So what would happen is what we've been doing in ARPA is we've allocated all of the money into the pots, and we took votes, a lot of discussion and votes on that. And then what we've been doing is coming to consensus, right? So we had the guy that needed, I can't remember the town, who needed those Seymour water meters. We all were like, what do you think? Yep, let's do it, right? So it's always, for this part of the agenda, it's always just discussion. So, and everybody who's in here knows that, right? Like, that's how we've been doing this. There's no formal votes taken for ARPA, because the only reason you really need formal votes is if you're allocating money. We've already allocated the money into the pots. We're just deciding on the projects. But I do think, because of their construction timeline, we should at least signal to them what we're thinking. But we will have to take a formal, on this particular one, we will have to take a formal vote to approve the IGA.
So the IGA will have a dollar figure in it, right? And then we could always change, you know what I mean? Like if somebody's here, you know, if Diane comes in and is like, I hate this project, she'd have an opportunity. I don't think she's going to, but she would have an opportunity to make her case, right? And so we should tell you that, like, you know, whatever we discuss here is going to give staff a direction to create a formal agreement with this group that would then have to come back to the board for an actual vote. In this case, because government to government ones, we have to have IGAs. So, you know, for all the different ones we have with, you know, the Muhammad water project that we did and all, you know, all those different ones that are on the chart, those all have IGAs associated with them. But I do think for our staff purposes, we should at least signal to them a dollar amount to get the paperwork started.
I pulled it up here. We had allocated in the pot for the community violence intervention $4,072,963 total. We still have $2,572,963 to allocate. I know we were talking about reconvening the Community Violence Prevention Task Force to allocate those funds, but we have already said that we have $2.5 million that we're willing to spend. So if everybody was agreeing that it was coming out of that, I think it seems fair.
Just one more comment. Yeah, I saw that there's about $2.5 million unallocated. It's kind of like a contingency fund, so to speak. It's just not allocated, it's not targeted. It's just the $2.5 million that hasn't been targeted yet. I think City of Champaign has $6 million allocated to community violence. Is there a possibility to tag some of the, if Champaign County, not Champaign County, Champaign City has $6 million in their ARPA fund for, or they gave $6 million for community violence, is there some way Champaign, City of Champaign could help also? That's just a thought. It's not an answer.
I highly doubt that.
Yeah, and I mean, we have twice as much ARPA funds as they do, so.
Oh, awesome.
I don't think we should be trying to get them
ignorance. So then the other thought is, do we want to have a target range 2 to 5, or you just want to stay at 5? Is that where we're going? 200 to 500, or we're just landing at 500,000?
Like Stephanie said, something like this, particularly with another government entity, requires a formal contract, intergovernmental agreement, and you saw the timeline they put up there. Yep. Like, they need a definitive answer now. I also think that 500 is reasonable. But Emily, do you have something to add?
Yeah. If the figure that we go with is 500,000, how much wiggle room is there within your plans? Can you adapt to that amount?
Thanks. When we get the bids, we'll have a little more accurate information. I think our hope would be to still try to award the full program. What we don't want to do is cut spaces out. I mean, if you pull a gym out, you've just reduced who can be there. You know, you've reduced your capacity forever. I think we would try to do the best we could do to get as much of the program in. I can't really speak for our board, you know, as far as borrowing additional dollars or, you know, what they would be comfortable with. Our goal was to try to go raise the money any way we could so that we could try to not increase our debt service. So the more we put into debt, that just slows down every other area. But it's a high enough priority project, we would be compelled to find a way. I don't know if that was an adequate answer.
We also have alternates that will be included. So when I say alternates, the alternates would be like, instead of a wood floor, you have more of the pour and play type, the vinyl type floor. And there's a difference in price of a couple $100,000 for that. So we've tried to leave some room. Again, we don't know what the bids will come in at, but we have a few alternates in there that we can not mess with the size of the facility, but maybe put something that's probably not going to last as long that we can make better in the future.
Stephanie?
Could we just maybe just go around real quick and everybody just say what their dollar amount is?
Yeah, I
It
think
could,
we
you know,
should.
and if it's zero, just say zero. But if just, how about we just do that?
Yeah, I think we should start to wrap it up.
Yeah, do you wanna-
We still have another item, and I'm pretty
Right.
sure Paul has been at Brookings for 12 hours today, so. Maybe a straw poll. So the most recent several people had said 500. Just like, I guess, a raise of hands of who's comfortable with that. All right, I think that wraps that up.
Okay. So just to be clear,
for the record, it was everybody. I think maybe but Wayne.
no, he raised his hand.
Wayne?
So just to be clear, we are then directing Kathy to start draft. So what'll happen next is Kathy, who does our ARPA projects, and is in the back of the room because she's the most patient person on earth. When you leave, give your information to her, and she will work out the IGA, and then it will come to the board, and there will be a formal vote on that on the agreement, because you're another governmental agency. Okay.
Thank you.
Also to confirm, I'm sorry, Jen. This is coming out of the community violence prevention money that we have allocated. I just wanted to confirm.
Wow. So what I'm hearing, though, is that there is still quite a bit of unallocated violence prevention money. My guess is that if the Park District still needed money and we had unallocated money after the next set of inquiries, they could come back to us. That's all.
Well, I would support that. I just want to make sure we get to March 24th first.
All right.
I would support that as well.
All right, so I think that wraps that up. Thank you for coming out tonight. You guys have been very persistent. Thanks for all your hard work.
Thank you all, and appreciate your attention, and most of all, the ongoing partnership.
Yes, thank you.
All right. So next on the agenda is Supervisor of Assessments, request for funds for exemption monitoring.
Hi, I'll try to be quick.
Paul, if you want to, I think we have some new members. If you want to introduce yourself.
I'm Paula Bates. I'm the Supervisor of Assessments. And we undertook a project last year called True Roll and signed up for 6 months. And it's exemption monitoring. And the way I look at it is it's an audit of all the exemptions we have in the county. We have about 49,000. And so far, they have returned to us 10,000 that we should check. So a lot of them are high priority, some are low priority. And what we are finding is people have passed away, or they own property in another state and are claiming exemptions there, and you can only claim them on one. So I felt that we'll have a lot of removals, but also the list also gives us people who aren't receiving an exemption. So it works both ways, which is good because we want people to get their exemptions. So I'm just requesting to do another 6 months to audit the exemptions, and I believe this is something we should think about doing every 3 to 4 years. Anybody have any questions?
You actually answered my question with the last
statement,
Mr. Ingram.
The 49,000 that you said, is it just homestead exemptions?
It's homestead, seniors,
okay,
disabled veterans, and disabled persons.
Awesome. Okay, so it's everything.
All.
Everything. Okay. I feel like you were looking directly at me when you said we want to try to make sure that everybody who should get one is getting one. I spent a lot of time when I was in office trying to make sure that that people were aware of it, because I knew people who had been in their house 10 years and just didn't know that they could even get it.
Right.
Just for the, masses of people that watch this at home, could you just very quickly, I mean, this is a lot, like we have people tune in. Would you just very briefly just list those exemptions really quickly, just so people
Sure.
have an idea of what they, because I feel like not everybody even knows that
Sure.
they exist.
So anyone who owns and occupies their home is entitled to a 6,000 exemption. That's called the general homestead. And then when you turn 65, you can sign up for an additional 5,000 off your total assessed value. There's also a senior citizens assessment freeze, and it's based on household income. If you make under 65,000, you would qualify for that, and that freezes your assessed value. And then the disabled persons is a $2,000 exemption, and the veterans ranges upon your disability. 100% disabled, you don't pay property tax.
Excellent, thank you.
You're welcome.
But that's on the assessed value of the house decreases by 6,000 or 5,000, right? Okay.
That's correct.
Stephanie?
I fully support this. I want to thank Wayne, who has been in my ear that we needed to support this with ARPA funds for months now. He's like, and also has been telling me, you know, Paula didn't get anything from ARPA. Her office is, this is the only thing she's asked for ARPA. Other departments have gotten lots and lots of money. Her office has got nothing. This is all she's asked for. I think we should give it to her.
Thank you, I appreciate that.
Anybody else?
Oh, Wayne's got some.
Oh,
Stephanie is right. I've been pushing this for quite a bit of time. The assessor's office should already be doing exemption monitoring, but with the staffing levels they have, it's very, very difficult to do that. What Truro does is make it a lot easier. And, you know, we in Champaign County, we automatically grant homestead exemptions to people who check the box in the transfer declaration that they're going to use the property as their primary residence. Now, typically, these transfer declarations are filled out by a paralegal in an attorney's office or at a title company. They do dozens of these things a day. You know, accidents happen, right? But if you're not entitled to an exemption, you shouldn't get it. If you are entitled, you should. Paula works very hard. She's frankly underpaid. I could send you all a spreadsheet that shows that. But people in her office work very hard, and like Stephanie said, she hasn't asked for anything from ARPA. This is they've already found some. I'll give you an example. If you are a law enforcement officer or a judge or some type of security sensitive position, you can actually get your name redacted from the assessment rolls. And what we found is that there are people who've had their names redacted from multiple in multiple counties getting a homestead exemption. And Truro were able to find these parcels where that was happening. There's no way we would have found that without this program. No way. It's impossible. So we should support this.
One more question. What happens when that person is identified? If you found somebody, when you get a hit, does that automatically generate something that you would send out to them? I mean, obviously nobody's going to be knocking on their door and telling them like, yeah, that they're going to cuff them up or anything. But conversely, what happens when you find somebody who doesn't have an exemption that should?
Okay, sorry. When we find someone, we'll mail them an application. If we find something that needs removed, we're making notes, we're removing it. We don't have anything set up to notify them, but we'll remove it for 22 or 23, whatever year is qualified. And that's what we normally do when we monitor any exemptions. Okay.
Thank you.
I'd like to add, if someone's exemption was taken away by the county mistakenly, there's a way for them to get it back. You know, they can go and apply and, if need be, get a refund. But I'm sure the assessor's office is going to work very hard to make sure that doesn't happen.
Stephanie?
So can we just, like, if you're into it, thumbs it up? All right.
All right. It's pretty definitive. Looks like everybody was supportive of that. All right. Thank you, Paul. Thanks for staying late.
Thank you, Paul.
All right.
So since Wayne has worked so hard on this, should we call it Wayne's exemption too, or?
All right. So seeing no other business, call this meeting adjourned. Thank you.
If you drive a semi in Champaign County, please avoid Springfield at the viaduct. Okay.